Welcome back to Soccer AI GOAT Podcast. Get ready for tactical insights, strategy, performances, what-if scenarios. Let's kick off. I'm Jake.
And I'm Sophia. Today, we're not just talking tactics. We're kind of peering into the crystal ball of football formations.
Ooh, intriguing.
Yeah, the big question we're tackling head on. Will the classic 4-4-2 formation survive the relentless tactical evolution of the next 2 decades?
A huge question. It feels like such a fundamental part of the game's history.
Exactly. So we'll dissect its journey, from those solid foundations in the 90s to its surprisingly adaptable modern forms across Europe and South America.
And hopefully uncover some game-changing insights about this, well, seemingly simple, yet, as you say, enduring setup.
That's the player, aiming for those insights.
Okay, Sophia, let's wind the clock back then. The 1990s. For a lot of us, myself included, when you picture a 4-4-2, that's really the era that springs to mind, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
What were the absolute core characteristics back then? What really made a 90s 4-4-2 feel like a 90s 4-4-2?
Well, in the 90s, I think the beauty, or perhaps the defining feature of the 4-4-2 lay in its really clearly defined roles. It was quite rigid.
Right.
You had your two strikers, often that classic big man, little man partnership, Two central midfielders, maybe one holding, one more attacking, but often quite disciplined. And then out wide, you had wingers. Their main job, hug the touchline, get crosses into the box. Simple, effective.
Very direct.
Yeah, and behind them, a pretty straightforward, usually very disciplined bank of 4 defenders, 2 center backs, 2 fullbacks, mostly focused on, defending.
Not bombing forward like today.
Not typically, no. The whole formation had a very fixed shape. You didn't really see the kind of positional swapping and fluidity we're so used to now.
And tactically, what was the main goal with that structure?
Yeah.
What were teams trying to achieve?
The emphasis back then often revolved around direct play, getting the ball forward quickly.
Makes sense.
Counterattacks were a massive weapon. And those midfield battles, they could be incredibly physical. It was about winning your individual duel.
Yeah, I remember that. Tough tackling.
Definitely. Players were really expected to maintain their specific positions. That gave you a solid defensive structure, made marking opponents simpler. Everyone knew their job and, generally stuck to it.
You mentioned earlier, though, that Europe and South America had slightly different takes on it, even back then. What were those key sort of nuances?
That's right. In Europe, our analysis indicates the 4-4-2 often went hand in hand with a really strong counter-attacking philosophy.
Okay.
Think about teams like Sir Alex Ferguson's Manchester United. They were, masters of disciplined wide play, right?
Yeah.
They had strikers who complemented each other perfectly, like York and Cole,
Right.
and a midfield that could just explode from defense to attack.
Lightning speed.
Exactly. And then you had Fabio Capello's size, AC Milan, Juventus, legendary for their organization, their defensive solidity, just pure teamwork. They'd use the width to stretch teams, then rely on their forwards to finish off crosses or through balls.
Real tactical discipline there. And in South America, what was the flavor there?
South America, from what many fans noticed, often brought a bit more, let's say, traditional flair to the 4-4-2.
Yeah, individual skill.
Yeah, exactly. While the formation itself was used, there was typically a greater emphasis on individual brilliance, out-wide wingers who could beat their man one-on-one, create something special, and maybe a bit more creative freedom in the midfield too, less rigid, perhaps.
Interesting difference. Okay, let's fast forward then. Present day. When you see a team sheet listing a 4-4-2 now, it can feel like a totally different animal on the pitch. What are the defining shifts we've seen?
Oh, completely different. The biggest change, without a doubt, is the move towards fluidity and flexibility. It's massive.
How so?
Well, even if a team's initial lineup says 4-4-2, the reality on the pitch is often far more dynamic. Players are constantly rotating positions, fullbacks are bombing forward, wingers are drifting inside.
Yep.
It's much more interconnected.
Adaptable.
So the lines are blurred.
Very much so. In Europe, we see loads of variations within that framework. Things like inverted wingers playing on the opposite side to cut in and shoot. Right, like Salah or Robin used to.
Precisely. Or the use of a false nine, a center forward who drops deep, pulling defenders out of position, creating space. And midfields that can just seamlessly morph into a 4-3-3 or maybe a 4-2-3-1, depending on the phase of play.
Can you give us a couple of solid examples? Teams that embodied this modern, fluid 4-4-2 in Europe.
Absolutely. Diego Simeone's Atletico Madrid is a fantastic, maybe the prime example.
Always tough to play against.
Incredibly. While they might often be described as a 4-4-2, their real strength is that unbelievable compactness, Their aggressive high press and those lightning quick transitions.
So disciplined yet dynamic.
Exactly. You'll often see their fullbacks pushing incredibly high.
Huh.
The wingers tuck inside, creating overload centrally, and the forwards, constantly interchanging, trying to disrupt the opposition's defense.
Creates real problems. Any others?
Well, think about Unai Emery. Both at Arsenal and now especially at Aston Villa, he consistently shows real tactical adaptability.
Yeah, Villa have been impressive.
He encourages his midfielders and wingers to swap roles, creates significant positional fluidity, and implements a really coordinated pressing structure all over the pitch. It looks like a 4-4-2 sometimes, but it operates very differently.
So it sounds like the tactical details, the nuances within that 4-4-2 shape have evolved massively.
Undeniably. Today, there's a much bigger emphasis on high pressing, winning the ball back high up the field.
Proactive defending.
Yeah, and on dominating possession, too, in many cases. The midfield is way more involved in every phase, building attacks from the back, recovering the ball quickly.
Right.
And like we said, those rigid lines of the 90s, often deliberately blurred now. Fullbacks are key attackers, wingers drift centrally, midfielders interchange constantly. It's less about sticking to a strict grid, more about a flexible, dynamic framework.
What about South America today? Are they following these European trends or putting their own spin on it?
It seems like South American teams are definitely blending their traditional flair and creativity with a greater appreciation for European tactical discipline now.
A hybrid approach.
Kind of. That individual brilliance is still a hallmark, absolutely. But the 4-4-2, or its close variations, is now used in a much more fluid and adaptable way there, too. Players need to be versatile, able to play multiple roles within a game. There's a clear, growing influence of European tactical ideas, mixing with that inherent South American creativity.
Okay, let's really nail down the key differences then. If you had to pick the absolute standout contrast between the 90s 4-4-2 and its modern version, what are they?
Okay, number one, rigid versus fluid. That's paramount. 90s roles, super clear. Today, it's all about players interchanging, adapting in attack and defense.
Got it. What else?
Defensive strategy, totally flipped. It was about that solid, mostly static back four in the 90s. Now, it's about dynamic pressing systems. Defenders need to be agile, read the game, step out, cover space.
It's more demanding for defenders.
For sure. And the attacking approach. It's moved away from just relying on winger crosses and two fairly static forwards. Now there's a bigger emphasis on keeping the ball, quick transitions, and attacking movements coming from everywhere. Multidimensional.
That covers a lot. And how have these big changes affected the actual jobs of the players on the pitch, position by position?
Oh, it's been a dramatic shift pretty much across the board. Take fullbacks, 90s, mostly defend, maybe overlap occasionally.
Right.
Now, they're often crucial attacking outlets. Think of Trent Alexander-Arnold, Joao Cancelo. They spend so much time in the opposition half creating chances, even stepping into midfield sometimes.
Game changers.
Definitely. Wingers, too. They've gone from mainly being crossing specialists to incredibly versatile players. They cut inside, shoot, link play centrally, almost become secondary strikers sometimes. Look at Raheem Sterling, Son Heung-min.
More like inside forwards often.
Exactly. Much more involved in goal scoring.
What about the engine room, the central midfielders? How have their roles changed?
Huge evolution there, too. They've moved away from that often rigid defensive attacking pair. Now it's much more fluid, dynamic. You might see a deep-lying playmaker like Jorginho dictating tempo from deep.
Controlling the game.
Yeah, alongside maybe a box-to-box midfielder like, say, Paul Pogba in his prime, covering tons of ground, contributing at both ends. Even the old distinction between holding and attacking mids feels increasingly blurred. They need to do a bit of everything.
And it's not just the outfield players, right? Even defenders and goalkeepers have had to adapt significantly.
Precisely. Center backs now, they need to be so much more comfortable on the ball, playing out from the back, starting attacks. Think Virgil van Dijk, Ruben Dias, it's expected now.
No hiding place.
None. And goalkeepers, wow. They've gone from mainly shot stoppers to almost being an 11th outfield player, actively involved in build-up with their feet. Think Alisson Becker compared to, say, Peter Schmeichel back in the day. Different roles entirely.
It really emphasizes how much the game itself has progressed, tactically and technically. It makes you wonder, what would a truly ideal 4-4-2 lineup look like from the 90s versus one today, reflecting these changes?
Yeah, this is a fun thought experiment. If we're building an ideal 90s 4-4-2, okay, maybe Peter Schmeichel in goal. Unique presence. Absolutely. Back four. How about Cafu, Franco Baresi, Fabio Cannavaro, and Paolo Maldini? Just immense quality and defensive nous.
Wow. Solid doesn't even cover it.
Right. Midfield, gotta have David Beckham on the right for those crosses and work rate. Maybe Zinedine Zidane's technique alongside Roy Keane's tenacity in the middle.
What a pairing. Fire and ice.
Exactly. And Ryan Giggs flying down the left. Pace, trickery. Up front, Ronaldo, il fenomeno, for
Yeah.
sheer goal threat, partnered with, say, Alan Shearer for his intelligent link-up and finishing.
That team. It just screams 90s power and quality, discipline, directness, but bags of flair.
It really does. That blend was key back then.
Okay, now the modern equivalent, reflecting today's game. What's the ideal modern 4-4-2?
Okay, modern ideal. Allison in goal, perhaps, for that distribution and shot stopping.
Makes sense.
Back four needs to be dynamic. Trent Alexander-Arnold and maybe Alphonso Davies as fullbacks, pure attacking threat. Centrally, Virgil van Dijk and Ruben Dias for that blend of aerial power, pace, and ball-playing ability.
Serious quality again.
Yeah.
Midfield.
Midfield needs pace and technical skill. Maybe Jadon Sancho on one flank, Leroy Sané on the other. Direct, tricky, can cut inside. Centrally, Kevin De Bruyne's creativity and passing range next to N'Golo Kante's engine and ball winning.
De Bruyne and Conte.
Yeah.
Unbelievable combination.
Unstoppable, potentially. And leading the line, you need goals and versatility. How about Erling Haaland's physical presence and finishing instinct alongside Kylian Mbappe's breathtaking skill and speed?
Haaland and Mbappe. That's just terrifying.
Right. This lineup really highlights that emphasis on technical skill, blistering pace, tactical fluidity, modern fullbacks creating, wide players scoring and creating, and a forward pair that offers, well, almost everything.
It's a very different profile of player in almost every position, isn't it?
Fundamentally different demands, yeah.
Now, you mentioned earlier, almost in passing, the 4-2-2 formation as a variation. How does that specific setup fit into this whole transformation we're talking about?
Yeah, the 4-2-2, sometimes called a magic box or a magic rectangle, it basically uses two deeper midfielders for defensive cover and build-up, and then two more advanced attacking midfielders operating just behind the two strikers.
So more centrally focused in attack.
Generally, yes. It really emphasizes getting those attacking midfielders into dangerous positions between the lines while still having that double pivot deeper for balance. It's inherently more attacking than a traditional flat 4-4-2.
But is it just about specific variations like that, or is the whole 4-4-2 concept changing?
That's the key point, really. It's not just about naming variations like 4-2-2 or 4-4-1-1. The core tactical principles, the way the basic 4-4-2 idea is practically applied on the pitch, that's what has undergone this huge overhaul.
Right, okay, let's dive into that a bit more. What are the most significant ways the application and the principles have shifted from the 90s?
Well, midfield dynamics, as we've hammered home, are completely different. 90s. Often quite a straightforward pairing, defined jobs today. Much more specialized dynamic roles. The deep-lying playmaker, the box-to-box engine. And the wingers are far more involved centrally, often operating as inverted threats.
And the fullbacks you mentioned.
Revolutionized. Absolutely revolutionized. From primarily defensive to crucial attackers overlapping, underlapping, even stepping into central midfield. It's a massive change.
What about the forwards?
The partnership up front has also moved on. Less of that classic target man-poacher combo, more fluid pairings now,
All right.
and the rise of the false nine or deeper-lying forwards who drop off, link play, create space. That's a big tactical shift within a two-striker system, too.
And defensively, what's the big picture change there?
Almost a complete reversal, you could say. The 90s was largely about maintaining that compact shape, clear lines, stay solid today. Huge emphasis on high pressing, forwards leading it, midfield backing up, defenders pushing high. It's proactive, aggressive.
And flexibility seems key now, too.
Hugely key. The 90s 4-4-2 was generally quite rigid. You knew what you were getting. Today, it's often just a base. Teams seamlessly shift into other shapes 4-3-3, 4-5-1 during different moments of the game. It has to be fluid.
Player roles, too. Less specialized.
Definitely. Versatility is prized so highly now. Players are expected to handle multiple responsibilities, understand different phases of play, not just, I'm a right winger, I cross the ball.
Right.
And finally, that overall tactical philosophy. 90s often favored directness, counterattacks, get it forward. Today, much greater value placed on keeping possession, controlling the game's tempo, building patiently when needed, although quick transitions are still vital, of course.
And you mentioned the geographical differences narrowing.
Yeah, it seems that way. While there were clear distinctions between, say, European counterattacking 4-4-2s and the South American flare-based ones in the 90s, we're now seeing a convergence. More fluid, adaptable versions are becoming common on both continents, borrowing ideas from each other.
It really does sound like a radical transformation. If you had to boil that core change down into just a sentence or two, what's the key takeaway message?
Okay. The most dramatic shift, I'd say, has been the move away from the rigid, clearly defined roles of the 90s 4-4-2 towards an era of incredible fluidity and positional interchangeability. And that's been accompanied by a fundamental change in tactical emphasis away from direct play and pure counterattacks towards a focus on proactive possession and aggressive high pressing. It's a different mindset.
So let's circle back to our big overarching question. Will the 4-4-2, in some form, still be a relevant tactical framework in, say, the next 20 years? What's your prediction based on all this?
Well, based on our analysis, the 4-4-2 in its pure, rigid 90s form, probably unlikely to see a widespread comeback. It just doesn't offer the flexibility needed in the modern game. But
Yeah.
the foundational principles behind it, balance across the pitch, providing with maintaining defensive compactness, those ideas are timeless. They're incredibly valuable building blocks for any successful team.
So it survives, but evolves.
Exactly. What we can anticipate is a continued increase in that fluidity and hybridization. Teams will likely keep using the 4-4-2 shape as a base structure, maybe defensively, maybe as a starting point, but with dynamic player roles and constant tactical shifts happening seamlessly within the game.
And technology playing a part.
Oh, for sure. We'll see further integration of data-driven insights, technologically informed adjustments, optimizing player positioning, making transitions between shapes even smoother, even quicker.
So it's definitely not about going back to the past. It's about continuous evolution.
Precisely. The future of the 4-4-2 lies in its adaptability. It will keep those core principles balance with compactness, but layer on modern tactical ideas like coordinated high pressing, rapid transitions, positional rotations.
And we'll probably keep seeing different versions of it, too.
Absolutely. Diverse implementations across different leagues, different countries, carefully tailored to specific opponents, specific game situations. The future isn't a nostalgic throwback. It's a constant refinement. An adaptable, data-informed, fluid system always being tweaked to meet the latest challenges of modern football.
That's a really fascinating perspective. It's clear that while the name 4-4-2 might stick around, what it actually means on the pitch has undergone this incredible journey and, well, seems set to keep evolving.
It really is. And what's truly interesting here is how a formation that looks quite simple on paper can actually possess such inherent adaptability, how it reflects these broader tactical trends across the whole sport.
Yeah.
It kind of raises a compelling question, maybe something for listeners to think about. What other formations, ones we think of as fundamental, might be on the verge of similar radical transformations in the years to come? Which one is next?
Ooh, a brilliant point to ponder indeed. Food for thought. Well, that brings us towards the end of our deep dive for today.
Yeah, it's been a real pleasure exploring the enduring legacy and the likely future path of this tactical cornerstone. Really fascinating stuff.
Subscribe to the AI Go podcast for more epic soccer deep dives. Thanks for tuning in.